Maria wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished her shift at the small diner. It was nearly midnight, and the rain was falling harder than she had expected. The streets were shiny and wet, reflecting the bright neon signs from the shops and restaurants. She grabbed her coat and stepped outside, shivering as the cold air hit her. The day had been long, just like every day lately, but she couldn't complain too much. Life had been hard, but she always found a way to keep going, especially for Liam, her 8-year-old son. Liam was the reason she got up every morning, no matter how tired or stressed she felt. He had a big smile and a kind heart, and he never let her see how worried he sometimes was about their small apartment and the bills that piled up on the counter. Maria loved him more than anything in the world. But being a single mom was not easy. Every day was a struggle. She worked at the diner in the evenings, and during the day, she cleaned houses in the neighborhood. Some days, she barely had time to eat properly, but she never complained. She had to keep going. As Maria walked toward her car, she noticed a man standing near the corner, drenched from the heavy rain. His clothes were wet, and he was shivering as he tried to shelter himself under a small, broken umbrella. At first, she considered ignoring him. After all, the streets weren't always safe at night, and she didn't know him. But something in his eyes made her pause. There was fear there, not the kind that comes from being careless in the dark, but a genuine worry, as if something unexpected had happened to him. Maria hesitated for a moment, then called out softly, "Are you okay?" The man looked up, startled, but he managed a small smile. My car broke down," he said. "I don't have anywhere to wait for help. I've been trying to call someone, but my phone died." Maria could see that he wasn't trying to scare her. His hands were trembling from the cold, and his shoes were soaked. She sighed, thinking of Liam alone in their apartment. He had probably finished his homework and was waiting for her return. Still, she felt a tug at her heart. She had often wished for a little kindness in the world, and maybe, just maybe, she could give that to someone who needed it. "Come with me," she said finally. "You can wait at my place until the rain stops. I live nearby." The man looked surprised but nodded gratefully. "Thank you. I don't want to trouble you." "You're not troubling me," Maria said quickly, almost a little too quickly, as if she needed to convince herself. "It's just one night." He followed her silently as they walked through the rain-slicked streets. She noticed he didn't carry much, just a small bag over his shoulder. Every step felt heavy, but Maria tried not to think about the risk she was taking. In her life, trust had to be given carefully, but sometimes, helping someone was worth a small risk. By the time they reached her apartment building, both of them were soaked through. Maria fumbled with the keys, trying not to shake too much from the cold. The man waited patiently, muttering a quiet, "Thank you" again, each time she dropped a key or turned it in the lock. Once inside, Maria took his coat and helped him dry off a little with the towels she kept in the bathroom. He introduced himself as David, shaking hands politely before shaking his head. "I don't usually ask strangers for help, but I didn't know where else to go," he said, a hint of embarrassment in his voice. Maria nodded, smiling. She could understand that feeling very well. Life often forced you into situations you never expected. While he dried off, Maria prepared a quick snack. She didn't have much, just bread, some cheese, and a few vegetables, but she wanted him to feel welcome. David sat at the small kitchen table, quietly observing her movements as she sliced bread and arranged some cheese. He didn't make any demands or complaints. He seemed genuinely polite and respectful, which was unusual for someone she had just met. "You don't have to do this," he said softly when Maria offered him a sandwich. "I can manage, really." Maria shook her head. "It's just food. It's no trouble. We all need a little kindness sometimes, don't we?" David nodded, looking out the window at the rain that was still pouring. Yes, yes, we do, he said quietly. His voice had a strange calmness to it, and Maria felt an unexpected sense of trust forming. After dinner, Maria gave him a spare blanket and directed him to the small guest room she used for storage. It wasn't much, just a single bed and a small dresser, but it was clean, and it was safe. "You can sleep here tonight," she said, trying to sound firm but kind. "I know it's not fancy, but it's dry, and it's warm." "Thank you," David said simply, settling onto the bed. He seemed genuinely relieved, and Maria felt a small sense of pride. She had helped someone tonight. In her busy, stressful life, that was rare. Before she left the room, she paused. "I should warn you," she said lightly. "I have a little boy. He's sleeping now. Don't be surprised if he wakes up in the middle of the night." David smiled. "That's fine. Kids are good. I like them." Maria felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. It had been a long time since she had met someone who treated her so kindly, someone who didn't judge her or expect anything in return. She turned off the lights and quietly left the room, careful not to wake Liam, who was curled up on his bed, clutching his favorite stuffed animal. As she lay in her own bed, Maria's mind raced. She worried, as any mother would, about letting a stranger into her home. What if he wasn't who he said he was? What if something went wrong? But at the same time, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe her small act of kindness would make a difference. Maybe it was worth the risk. Outside, the rain continued to fall. The streets glistened under the dim streetlights, and the world felt both quiet and alive at the same time. Maria listened to the sound, thinking about how unpredictable life could be. Some days were dark and hard, filled with worry and exhaustion. Other days offered small glimpses of light, small opportunities to connect with someone in need. She hoped that tonight would be one of those glimpses. Somewhere in the quiet of the apartment, David lay awake too. He was grateful for her kindness and surprised by the comfort he felt in a stranger's home. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long while, he felt safe. There was no pretension or judgment, just the simple reality of being cared for when he needed it most. Maria eventually drifted into a light sleep, one eye always half open as a mother's instinct never truly rests. She dreamed of brighter days ahead, of moments where small acts of kindness could change lives not just for strangers, but for people like her and Liam, struggling to get by in a world that didn't always make things easy. By the time morning arrived, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Maria woke early, already thinking about her next job, her next shift, and the meals she had to prepare for Liam. She wondered if David was still asleep or if he had already left. She couldn't see him from her room, and for a moment, she felt a pang of worry. Had she done the right thing? But when she checked the guest room, the small bed was neatly made, and the man was sitting quietly by the window, drinking a cup of tea she hadn't noticed him make. He looked up at her and smiled. "Good morning," he said. "I hope I didn't cause too much trouble." Maria shook her head. "Not at all. You're welcome here anytime, well, not literally anytime, but you know what I mean," she said with a small laugh. David laughed softly. "I understand. Thank you, truly." For Maria, it was a small, unexpected victory. She had helped someone in need. In the quiet moments of her life, surrounded by bills, work, and responsibility, this small connection brought her a sense of hope. Maybe tomorrow would be easier, or maybe it wouldn't. But tonight, she had shown kindness, and that was enough. Little did Maria know that this brief encounter, born from a rainy night and a simple act of humanity, would change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The next morning, Maria moved through her apartment quietly, careful not to wake Liam. He had already gone through his morning routine, but she could see the little mess he had made the night before. His school bag was on the floor, and a few of his toys were scattered near the small table where he had done his homework. Maria sighed, smiling faintly. Life was messy, unpredictable, and exhausting, but it was hers, and she loved it. Downstairs, in the guest room, David was quietly getting ready for the day. He had slept better than he expected, in a bed that wasn't his own, in a place filled with warmth and kindness. As he sipped the tea Maria had left for him, he thought about how rare it was to meet someone like her. People in his world, fast-paced, always busy with work, money, and appearances, rarely offer genuine kindness without expecting something in return. But here, in this small, simple apartment, he found something he had forgotten existed: sincerity. He didn't want to leave just yet. The rain had stopped, but the streets were still wet, and the world outside felt too noisy and harsh after the quiet comfort of Maria's home. He glanced at the small kitchen and saw the remnants of the breakfast she had prepared: a half-eaten sandwich, a cup of coffee. He felt a strange sense of gratitude, not just for the meal but for the effort, the thoughtfulness behind it. He wondered how many people in his life would have done the same if the roles were reversed. Maria, meanwhile, was preparing a quick breakfast for herself and Liam. She put some eggs on the stove, grabbed a slice of bread, and poured herself a small cup of coffee. She glanced at the clock and realized she had only a few minutes before she had to leave for her day job at a client's house. Cleaning houses during the day was exhausting, and she often had to rush from one client to another, barely taking a moment to breathe. But she didn't mind. It paid the bills, helped keep a roof over Liam's head, and gave her a sense of independence she was proud of. As she carried the plate to the table, she noticed David sitting by the window, looking out at the wet streets below. Liam, still half asleep, glanced curiously at the stranger. "Who's that, Mom?" he asked softly. Maria smiled. "This is David. He needed a place to stay last night. He's just leaving soon." Liam nodded, still unsure what to make of him. Children were honest in ways adults often weren't. He didn't feel fear, but he felt curiosity. Maria could see it in his eyes, the mixture of caution and interest that always appeared when someone new entered their lives. She hoped David would be kind to him, as he had been to her. David noticed the boy's gaze and offered a small smile. "Hi, Liam," he said gently. "I hope I didn't disturb your sleep." Liam hesitated, then returned a shy smile. "It's okay," he said softly, his small voice full of honesty. Maria felt a little relief. She always worried about how her son would react to strangers. He was bright, but he was also sensitive, and she wanted to protect that innocence for as long as possible. "He's very polite," she said quietly, glancing at David. David nodded. "Your son seems wonderful. You must be very proud." Maria felt warmth in her chest. In her life, praise was rare, and hearing it especially about Liam was always special. "I am," she said simply. "He's my whole world." Breakfast was quiet after that. Liam ate quickly, eager to finish so he could get ready for school. David didn't mind the silence, he had grown used to it in his own life, where people often spoke only to serve their own interests. Here, in this small apartment, quiet was peaceful, almost comforting. Before leaving, David offered to help Maria with a few chores. He stacked some dishes in the sink and wiped down the counter, simple gestures that showed respect and consideration. Maria watched him, slightly surprised. Many people would have left without even saying thank you or helping in the smallest way. He didn't. It was a small thing, but it mattered. "Thank you," Maria said softly. "I didn't expect that." David smiled. "I think kindness should be shared, not taken," he said. "You helped me yesterday. It's the least I can do." Maria nodded, feeling a strange mixture of pride and disbelief. She didn't know this man, and yet he treated her like a friend, like an equal. It was a feeling she had almost forgotten existed in her world, where people often judged quickly or ignored struggles they didn't understand. After breakfast, Liam put on his backpack, ready for school. "See you, David," he said quietly, waving his small hand. David waved back, his smile genuine. "See you, Liam. Take care." As they left for school and her work, Maria felt a small flutter of hope. She didn't know why, but something about David's presence had lightened the heavy weight she carried in her chest. Perhaps it was the first time in a long time she had felt that the world wasn't entirely unkind. The day passed slowly, filled with cleaning and household chores for Maria. She moved from one house to another, scrubbing floors, dusting furniture, and organizing rooms. Each client had different demands, and some were harder than others, but she handled it all with determination. Yet, her mind often drifted back to David. She wondered who he really was, what kind of life he led, and why someone like him would accept help from someone like her. Meanwhile, David returned to his own world, one far removed from Maria's small apartment. He had a life full of work, meetings, and responsibilities, but something about last night lingered in his mind. He couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way she had welcomed him, about the sincerity in her eyes, and the kindness she had shown without expecting anything in return. It was rare to meet someone like that, and it had made a quiet but lasting impression on him. Later that evening, Maria returned home, exhausted but relieved to see Liam smiling and chatting about his day at school. She listened with interest as he recounted stories about his friends and the small adventures he had during recess. Life was hard, but moments like these reminded her why she kept going. Liam's laughter and joy were worth every tired step, every long hour, and every worry about the future. As she prepared dinner, she thought about David again. The encounter was brief, just one night, but it had shaken something in her heart. She realized that small gestures could have a big impact. She had helped someone in need, and in return, she had received kindness, respect, and a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in years. After dinner, she tucked Liam into bed, listening as he whispered goodnight and drifted off to sleep. Maria sat in the quiet living room, reflecting on the events of the past day. The world was unpredictable, full of challenges and struggles, but it was also full of surprises and opportunities. Sometimes, a simple act of kindness could lead to something extraordinary, even if she didn't yet know it. That night, as she lay in bed, Maria thought about David and the strange twist of fate that had brought him into their lives. She wondered if she would ever see him again, or if he would simply remain a fleeting memory, a reminder of the power of generosity and empathy. She closed her eyes, hoping that wherever he was safe and warm, just as she had tried to make him feel. Little did Maria know that David's visit was only the beginning of a story that would change her life in ways she could never imagine. The man she had welcomed out of simple kindness was not just any stranger. He carried a world of influence, power, and opportunity, one that would soon intersect with her life in ways beyond her wildest dreams. For now, though, it was enough to know that kindness existed, even in small apartments, on rainy nights, and in the hearts of people who had little to give but still chose to give it. That was the lesson Maria carried to bed that night, a quiet hope that tomorrow, and the days after, could be brighter than today. And in the stillness of the night, she didn't realize that someone in the city was already thinking about her, the woman who had shown compassion to a stranger, not knowing the man she helped would soon play a significant role in her life. The next morning, Maria woke earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet, Liam still asleep, and for a moment, she allowed herself to enjoy the stillness. She moved softly to the kitchen, put on the kettle, and prepared breakfast. But even as she went through her morning routine, her mind drifted back to David. She wondered if he had arrived safely at his destination, if he remembered the small apartment, the messy toys, and her son's shy smile. For a woman like Maria, every day was a struggle. Bills had to be paid, groceries bought, and the rent managed. There were days when it felt impossible to keep everything in balance. Yet, the encounter with David brought an unusual warmth. It was a feeling she had long forgotten, like hope sneaking into her heart without asking permission. She wondered why someone so different from her had treated her with such genuine care. Liam's alarm rang suddenly, cutting through the silence. He jumped out of bed, rubbing his eyes, and hurried to get ready. Maria helped him dress and packed a small breakfast for him to take along. The routine was familiar, almost comforting in its simplicity, but there was an underlying tension she couldn't ignore. Life was predictable in its unpredictability, and moments of peace like yesterday night were rare. As Liam headed out the door, backpack slung over one shoulder, Maria called after him. "Don't forget your lunch." He waved without turning back, already absorbed in his small adventure of the day. Maria smiled, feeling both pride and a twinge of worry. She wished she could protect him from the hardships of the world, but she knew that was impossible. The best she could do was prepare him, guide him, and love him fiercely. After Liam left, Maria returned to her chores. Laundry had piled up over the week, and dishes waited in the sink. She hummed softly to herself as she worked, a small rhythm keeping her company. But her thoughts continually returned to David. She wondered if he had gone back to his busy life, if the memory of her small apartment had even stayed in his mind. Meanwhile, David was sitting in a sleek, modern office far removed from the warmth of Maria's apartment. His life was busy, structured, and full of responsibilities. Meetings, emails, reports, everything demanded attention. Yet, despite the stress and the constant demands, he couldn't shake the memory of the woman who had offered him shelter and kindness. He remembered the way she had smiled when Liam called him polite, and the quiet strength she carried despite the struggles of her daily life. David had encountered many people in his position, people who were struggling or in need, but very few left a lasting impression. Maria had. There was a sincerity in her actions, a quiet courage that made him pause and reflect on the differences between his world and hers. Days passed, but Maria couldn't stop thinking about him either. She often wondered why a stranger, someone she had helped without expecting anything in return, had affected her so deeply. There was something unusual about it. She couldn't put her finger on it yet, but she sensed that this encounter was more than just a one-time incident. Life sometimes had a way of connecting people when they least expected it. One afternoon, while cleaning a client's house, Maria received a phone call. She glanced at the number, not recognizing it, but answered politely. "Hello," she said, trying to keep her tone professional despite the curiosity. "Hi, is this Maria?" a calm, confident voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "Who's calling?" Maria replied, slightly suspicious. "My name is David. We met a few days ago. I stayed at your apartment during the storm." Maria froze for a moment. The coincidence made her heart skip a beat. "Oh, yes. I remember. How are you?" "I'm well, thank you. I just wanted to check in and thank you again for your kindness." "It meant a lot to me," David said. Maria felt warmth spreading in her chest. It was rare for people to follow up, to show appreciation beyond the moment. "You're welcome," she said softly. "It wasn't much, really. I hoped you were safe." David smiled, though she couldn't see it over the phone. "I was. And it made me realize how important small acts of kindness are. Even a little gesture can mean a lot to someone who's struggling." Maria nodded, her heart touched by his words. "I think you're right," she said quietly. "Life is hard sometimes, but it's moments like these that remind us to keep going." Their conversation continued for a few minutes, light and friendly. David asked about Liam, about her work, about how she managed the challenges of her life. Maria found herself opening up in a way she hadn't expected, sharing small details about her struggles and joys. David listened patiently, offering encouragement without judgment. As they spoke, Maria realized something important. The connection they had formed during that stormy night wasn't random. It had started with kindness, but it had grown into something deeper: a mutual respect, a quiet understanding, and perhaps even the beginnings of trust. She felt a sense of relief, a rare comfort in knowing that someone understood her world, even from a distance. David, on his side, found himself genuinely interested in her life. He wanted to know more, not because of obligation or curiosity, but because he genuinely cared. He admired her resilience, her dedication to her son, and the strength she carried despite the weight of her struggles. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose beyond his work, beyond meetings and reports. He wanted to make a difference, not just in a professional sense, but in a personal one as well. Over the next few days, their phone conversations became a small but significant part of Maria's routine. Between clients and chores, she would find moments to talk to David. They shared stories, laughter, and occasionally, quiet silences that spoke louder than words. The bond they were forming was subtle but undeniable, built on mutual respect and the simple human need for connection. One evening, after Liam had gone to bed, Maria sat by the window, phone in hand. David had just called, sharing a funny story about a business meeting that had gone completely wrong. She laughed, a sound that felt free and light. It was a rare moment of joy, one that reminded her that life could still surprise her in the best ways. "Maria," David said softly, "I know our worlds are very different, but I feel like there's something genuine between us. Something worth exploring." Maria paused, her heart racing. She had thought about this, wondered if such a connection was possible. But hearing him say it aloud made it real. She felt a mixture of excitement and caution, knowing that life had taught her to be careful with her heart. Yet, there was a pull, an undeniable attraction to someone who had treated her with kindness, respect, and understanding. "I feel the same," she admitted, her voice quiet but steady. "It's strange, but I think I trust you." David smiled, though she could only imagine it. "Trust is important. I promise to respect that." Their conversations continued late into the night, each call bringing them closer, each shared story deepening their understanding of each other. Maria found herself looking forward to these moments, to the sense of connection that filled her heart despite the challenges of her daily life. Meanwhile, in his world, David thought constantly about her. He began to plan ways to support her, not in a way that was patronizing, but in a way that could make her life easier, safer, and perhaps even happier. He didn't yet reveal his full identity, knowing that it might overwhelm her. But he started quietly, thinking of small gestures, small opportunities that could ease her burdens. One afternoon, Maria received a small package at her apartment. It was simple: some groceries, a few household supplies, and a note that read, "For you and Liam, with care. D." She was touched. It wasn't extravagant, but it was thoughtful. Someone had noticed her struggles and wanted to help in a quiet, respectful way. Tears welled up in her eyes. She had never expected such kindness, especially from someone she barely knew. It was more than she had hoped for, a reminder that life could still hold surprises and goodness, even in the midst of hardship. That night, as she tucked Liam into bed, she whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. Life was difficult, but it was also full of moments that reminded her to keep believing, keep hoping, and keep moving forward. And somewhere in the city, David thought the same thing: that a simple act of kindness could spark something extraordinary, something life-changing for both of them. Little did Maria know, David's connection to her life was about to deepen even further. The man she had helped was not only kind but influential, with the power to change her world in ways she couldn't yet imagine. And the bond they had started to form, built on trust, kindness, and shared human experience, would soon be tested and strengthened in ways neither of them expected. For now, though, it was enough to know that their worlds had touched, that their lives had intersected in a way that was meaningful and real. And in the quiet of her small apartment, Maria felt a small but undeniable hope that life could be better, that help could come in unexpected forms, and that the future might hold something extraordinary for both her and her son. The days after the small gift arrived were filled with a mix of excitement and curiosity for Maria. She couldn't stop thinking about David. His thoughtfulness had touched her deeply, and she wondered about him constantly. There was a quiet anticipation in her life now, a small spark of something new that made even the toughest days feel lighter. Maria tried to focus on her work, cleaning houses and apartments in the neighborhood. She moved through each room methodically, scrubbing counters, dusting shelves, and vacuuming floors, but her mind wandered back to David with every sweep of the mop and every folded towel. She found herself replaying their conversations, remembering the sound of his calm voice, the sincerity in his words, and the way he had listened to her without rushing or judging. Even Liam noticed a change in her. He had always known that life could be hard, but now he saw a small light in his mother's eyes that hadn't been there before. One afternoon, while Maria was folding his laundry, he looked up at her with curiosity. "Mom, are you happy?" he asked. Maria paused, surprised by the question. She had been so busy thinking about everything else that she hadn't considered how to answer him. She looked into his innocent eyes and smiled. "I think I am happy, Liam." "Yes, I am," she said softly. Liam grinned and returned to his toys. Maria felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. It was a small moment, but it reminded her that even in the midst of struggles, happiness could be found in simple things: a kind word, a smile, a quiet morning, or a thoughtful gesture. Meanwhile, David's life continued at its fast pace, but he couldn't ignore the thought of Maria. He found himself daydreaming during meetings, thinking about how she managed her life with such determination. He admired her strength, but more than that, he admired her heart. He wanted to know more about her world, about the small details that made her life uniquely hers. One evening, he decided to reach out in a more personal way. He called Maria while she was preparing dinner, and she answered immediately, surprised but happy to hear from him. "Hi, Maria," David said warmly. "How was your day?" Maria smiled, setting down the spatula she had been using. "It was busy, as usual. But talking to you makes it feel better." David chuckled softly. "I'm glad to hear that. I wanted to ask, would you like to meet me for dinner? Somewhere nice, where you can relax." Maria hesitated for a moment. The idea of meeting him in person both excited and frightened her. She wasn't sure what to expect, and the idea of stepping into a world so different from hers was intimidating. But there was also a curiosity, a desire to see the man who had entered her life so unexpectedly and shown her kindness without asking for anything in return. I think I would like that," she said finally, her voice quiet but steady. "Great," David said, relief and happiness in his tone. "I'll pick you up tomorrow evening. You just need to be ready." The next day felt unusually long for Maria. She went about her chores, trying to keep herself busy, but every task felt like it was taking twice as long. She wondered what she should wear, how the evening would go, and if she would be able to be herself in front of someone like David. She didn't know much about his life, except that he was kind and thoughtful. But there was an unspoken understanding between them, a trust that had grown through their conversations. When evening finally came, Maria dressed carefully, choosing something simple but elegant. She looked at herself in the mirror, feeling nervous and excited at the same time. She had never been on a date like this before, never with someone who seemed so different from the world she knew. Yet, there was comfort in knowing that David had always treated her with respect and kindness. When David arrived, he greeted her with a warm smile and a gentle handshake that soon turned into a casual hug. Maria felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach but also a sense of safety. The drive to the restaurant was filled with light conversation, laughter, and moments of comfortable silence. Maria realized that she felt completely at ease with him, as if they had known each other far longer than they actually had. The restaurant was quiet and elegant, but not intimidating. They were seated in a corner, allowing them to talk freely. David ordered their meals, but he was more interested in their conversation than the menu. He asked about Liam, her work, and her daily routines, listening carefully and showing genuine interest. Maria found herself opening up, sharing stories she had never told anyone. As the evening went on, she noticed the way David watched her, the way he laughed at her jokes, and the way he seemed completely present. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of being truly seen and appreciated for who she was. After dinner, David suggested a walk. They strolled through the nearby park, enjoying the cool evening air. The city lights reflected in the small pond, and the sound of distant traffic blended with the occasional laughter of other people enjoying the night. Maria felt a sense of calm, a peace that she hadn't known in years. "Maria," David said softly, "I want you to know that I respect you, your life, and everything you do for Liam. You're an incredible person, and I feel lucky to have met you." Maria felt tears prick at her eyes. She had always believed that life had its struggles and disappointments, but here was someone who saw her strength and her heart. She smiled, her emotions mixing with relief and joy. "Thank you, David. That means a lot," she said. They walked in silence for a few moments, simply enjoying each other's company. Maria realized that she was no longer afraid of the differences in their worlds. What mattered was the connection they had, the trust and understanding that had grown over the past few weeks. As the evening came to an end, David offered to drive her home. Maria accepted, feeling a mixture of gratitude and warmth. When they arrived at her apartment, she felt a sense of anticipation for what the future might hold. "Thank you for tonight," she said softly. "It was wonderful." David smiled, his eyes reflecting sincerity. "It was my pleasure, Maria. I hope this is just the beginning of many more evenings together." Maria nodded, feeling a flutter of hope. She realized that life had a way of surprising people when they least expected it. A simple act of kindness on a stormy night had led to this moment, a moment filled with potential and promise. As she watched him drive away, she felt a sense of excitement and curiosity about the future. She didn't know what challenges might come, but she felt ready to face them, knowing that someone cared deeply for her and understood her struggles. That night, as she tucked Liam into bed, Maria thought about the strange twist of fate that had brought David into their lives. She whispered a quiet thank you to the universe, feeling a sense of hope and anticipation. Life was still challenging, but it had also become brighter, filled with the possibility of joy, support, and love. In his own world, David reflected on the evening with the same sense of contentment. He admired Maria not just for her strength, but for her kindness, her patience, and her ability to find joy in small things. He realized that this connection was rare, something worth cherishing and nurturing. Little did they both know, their bond was about to face a test, one that would challenge their trust, their courage, and their ability to navigate the differences in their worlds. But for now, they could simply enjoy the moments they had together, the small steps that had led to a growing connection, and the hope that life could bring unexpected happiness. For Maria, it was a night of realization that kindness could open doors, that hope could be found in unexpected places, and that life could offer moments of joy even amidst hardship. For David, it was a night of understanding that wealth and influence were not as important as heart and sincerity, and that true connections could transcend social boundaries. The story of their meeting, once a simple act of shelter during a storm, had blossomed into something meaningful. And while the future was uncertain, both of them knew that they had found something special, something worth holding onto, nurturing, and protecting. As Maria drifted off to sleep that night, she felt a quiet excitement for the days to come. Life had given her a gift, a reminder that even in the hardest times, there could be hope, kindness, and perhaps, a love that could change everything. The days after their dinner together passed in a gentle rhythm, a mix of daily responsibilities and stolen moments of happiness. Maria continued her work, caring for Liam and managing the household, but there was now a quiet excitement that carried her through each day. She thought about David constantly, replaying their conversations, imagining their future, and feeling a sense of warmth she had long forgotten. Liam noticed the change in his mother even more now. She laughed more freely, moved with lighter steps, and carried a calm confidence that hadn't been there before. One afternoon, as they were sitting together after finishing homework, Liam looked up at her with curiosity. "Mom, you look happy every day now," he said. Maria smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I am happy, Liam. Life feels brighter." Liam grinned, pleased to see his mother smiling so often. "I like it when you're happy, Mom. And I like David too. He's nice." Maria felt a rush of gratitude. She had been unsure at first about introducing David into their lives, worried about the differences in their worlds, but Liam's acceptance made her feel more at ease. She realized that love and trust weren't just about her feelings, they also had to include the people she cared about most. David continued to be a steady presence in her life. He respected her boundaries, never rushing her or trying to change her world. Instead, he offered support, kindness, and understanding. Sometimes, he would show up unexpectedly with small gifts, fresh flowers, a book he thought she might enjoy, or even a simple note reminding her to take care of herself. Each gesture deepened Maria's trust in him and strengthened the bond between them. One weekend, David invited Maria and Liam to spend the day with him at a nearby park. It was a sunny day, and the air was filled with the laughter of children and the distant sounds of music. Maria felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as they walked through the park, unsure of what to expect. But David's calm presence made her feel at ease. They found a quiet spot near a small pond and set up a picnic. Liam ran around, chasing butterflies and laughing freely, while Maria and David sat together on a blanket, talking about their hopes, dreams, and fears. It was a rare moment of peace, away from the pressures of everyday life, where they could simply enjoy each other's company. "Maria," David said softly, "I want you to know something. I know our lives are very different, and I understand that it's not always easy. But I care about you deeply. You and Liam mean a lot to me." Maria felt a lump in her throat. She had been careful with her heart, protecting it after years of struggle and disappointment. But here was someone who had proven, time and again, that his intentions were genuine. She reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "I care about you too, David. More than I thought I could care about anyone," she said, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. They sat in silence for a moment, watching Liam play, letting the feeling of connection wash over them. Maria realized that life had given her a second chance, not just at happiness, but at trust, love, and hope. In the following weeks, their relationship grew stronger. David became a part of their daily lives in subtle but meaningful ways. He helped with small tasks, offered guidance when needed, and always treated Maria and Liam with respect. Maria felt supported, not only as a partner but also as a mother, and that support made her life easier and her heart lighter. One evening, as they were preparing dinner together, Maria noticed David looking at her with a thoughtful expression. "Maria, there's something I want to tell you," he said carefully. "I've been hesitant to share this because I didn't want it to change anything between us. But I think you deserve to know the truth." Maria's heart skipped a beat. She had sensed that David had a life she didn't fully understand, a world far beyond her own. She nodded, encouraging him to continue. "I'm the new CEO of my company," he said quietly. "I only wanted you to see me as myself, not as someone with power or money. I wanted you to know the real me, the person who cares about you and Liam. Maria felt a rush of emotion, surprise, awe, and a touch of fear. The man she had invited into her home that stormy night, the one who had shown her kindness without expectation, was now someone with immense influence and responsibility. Yet, as she looked at him, she realized that none of that mattered. What mattered was the man he had been for her all along, the man who listened, cared, and respected her. David, she said softly, I don't care about your title or your money. I care about you, the person you are, not the person everyone else sees. David's eyes softened with relief and gratitude. Thank you, Maria. That means more to me than you can imagine. From that moment on, Maria and David's relationship took on a deeper sense of trust and understanding. They were no longer just two people from different worlds, they were a team, supporting each other through life's challenges and celebrating its joys together. One day, David surprised Maria and Liam with a trip to a local museum. Liam was thrilled, running from exhibit to exhibit, asking questions, and soaking in the experience. Maria walked beside David, feeling a sense of contentment and happiness she hadn't known in years. She realized that life had changed in ways she never expected, through a small act of kindness, through trust, and through the willingness to open her heart despite past struggles. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, David and Maria found a quiet spot to sit and reflect. Liam was nearby, completely absorbed in a small art installation, and Maria felt a sense of peace wash over her. Maria, David said softly, I want to make a promise to you. I promise to always respect you, to support you, and to be here for you and Liam. Life may bring challenges, but I want to face them together, as a family. Maria felt tears welling up in her eyes, tears of joy, relief, and hope. She had never imagined that her life could take such a turn, from struggling alone, facing endless challenges, to finding someone who truly cared and respected her. She squeezed his hand, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. I promise to, David, she said, her voice steady and full of emotion. I promise to face life together, to support each other, and to make the most of the happiness we've found. In the weeks and months that followed, their bond only grew stronger. David became a mentor, a friend, and a loving partner, helping Maria navigate challenges while respecting her independence. Liam thrived in this new environment, feeling the love and support from both his mother and David. The small apartment that had once felt cramped and difficult now felt like a home filled with warmth, laughter, and hope. Maria often thought back to the night of the storm, when she had opened her door to a stranger, unsure of what the night would bring. She realized that kindness, trust, and a willingness to see the good in others could lead to life-changing moments. She had taken a chance, and it had brought her not just happiness, but a sense of security, love, and belonging. David, too, reflected on the journey that had brought him to Maria and Liam. He had learned that true happiness was not found in wealth, power, or status, but in connection, kindness, and genuine love. He had found a family he never expected, and he cherished every moment with them. One evening, as they sat together watching the city lights from Maria's small balcony, Liam fell asleep in her arms, exhausted from the day's adventures. Maria and David held hands, feeling the quiet comfort of shared life and the promise of a future filled with love and support. Maria, David whispered, thank you for trusting me, for letting me into your life. I can't imagine it without you. Maria smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. And thank you, David, for showing me that life can be kind, that happiness is possible, and that love can come when you least expect it. In that moment, they knew that their journey was just beginning. Life would continue to have its challenges, but together, they felt ready to face anything. They had found each other through a twist of fate, and that connection had changed their lives forever. The storm that had brought them together was now a distant memory, replaced by moments of laughter, love, and hope. Maria had discovered that even in the toughest times, life could offer surprises, and that kindness and trust could open doors to a future she had never imagined. And so, the single mother who had once struggled alone now had a partner who respected and loved her, a child who thrived, and a life filled with the promise of happiness. It was a story of courage, trust, and unexpected joy, a reminder that sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. Maria looked at David, smiled, and felt a sense of peace she had never known before. Life had given her a gift, and she knew that she would cherish it forever. Together, they were no longer just surviving, they were living, loving, and building a future full of hope.